So Cobra Kai season 3 takes a lot of cues from the Karate Kid Part 2,
Right.
which is my favorite out of all of them. Ever since I was a kid, we had like posters for the movie in the dojo where I trained in like Taekwondo. Um, I was just wondering if you could talk a little about, because I've seen you talk about the making of that original movie all the time. I was wondering if you could talk a bit about the making of the Karate Kid Part 2 and how it was to revisit a lot of those themes in this season.
Yeah, the Karate Kid Part 2 we first went to Hawaii, and so Okinawa was built, our version of Okinawa was built on the windward side of Oahu, and they built that whole village, Tomi Village. And I remember outside of it would rain for 3 hours, and then it would be gorgeous for 7 hours. And then it would, so which was very much like what Okinawa is like. It's because I was there this season for Cobra Kai season 3. There was because it was a different culture. Pat Morita, I remember in that community of actors, for him, there was such a feeling of pride that he carried every day. It was so important to him that the portrayal of that would be authentic and real. And same thing, Tamlin, who was a young girl, Okinawan. So she had a great deal of pride with that as well. I remember, the tea ceremony scene was a special scene that so much detail and eloquence in that. And I love that scene even to this day, because it's pure innocence, and that's something, and we still talk about it. And that same innocence and that same affinity for each other is something that Tamla and I have. And you see that in the episode 4 and 5 of season 3 of Cobra Kai. There's just 30 something years difference. The fight scenes were intense. We did those back in Los Angeles. We shot certain shots of the that location, over there. But then they built that on sound stages. So, and the drum technique and all that stuff, coming up with what was going to be the wax on, wax off for season 2. And I still have people, they'll come up with those drums, and we alluded to it in the young cast with Sholo and Mary have a scene where, what's this drum? And that's not just what's this drum. It's going to save your life. And
Yeah.
It's Daniel LaRusso's life.
I could never beat the Okinawa levels in this game.
Yeah, right. That's classic.
How many takes did it for the ice chop? Where you actually
the ice chop was there were actual sheets of ice, and it hurt. So we did it. You had different. Some of them were plastic, plexiglass, like, or whatever, a plastic type material where it would stop. And the other ones, the problem is if they scored them. These are like inside. This is like DVD extras right here. They would score them so they would break easy, but then sometimes they would break when they put them in. So that resetting them always took a decent amount of time. But by the time if you watch the film, by the time I did the first few takes of hitting it here, which is, a bone, it hurts, by the time I got later, I would like turn my palm so it wouldn't hurt as much. And I think somewhere in the film, I start here and then I help myself out by take 15. So we did, like multiple angles, but it was, that scene's great. That's a great scene. That's, it had all those extras and Phil, and it had that cheering. It was like going in an underground gambling, an illegal mob gambling, juke joint or something. I don't know what it was.
Well, I was reading an interview with Tamlin, and she was saying that it felt like no time had passed at all between 30 some years. How was it working with her and Yuji again on this?
It was beautiful. It's a highlight of Tamlin is just, she just clicks on that Kumiko in 10 seconds. We were like 16 years old. I couldn't help but be like, There was such a sweet chemistry that we had back then and still have today. And so that it's going to be interesting to see how, how people feel about that. And LaRusso, he's a family man. That's his life. But you wonder if he thought, boy, what if this ever continued? Does he have those feelings? But it's more like we always had Paris kind of thing. And she's moved on with her life and he's moved on with his. And she hands off wisdom. She's like an extension of Miyagi they both are. And Yuji, slaps right into that, your karate is weak, and then yet there's a turn in his character. You see the dimension over time, and they both become sort of a carrier of Miyagi's wisdom to LaRusso, and it's kind of a beautiful thing. And some of my favorite stuff of the season. And I've been interviewed a bunch, and a lot of people call out those Okinawa, that section of having another level to the show, a different type of level to the show.
You were saying that in a separate interview that Hayden and Josh and John, they had kind of laid out this roadmap about how this all would go. Are we beyond this roadmap, or was Karate Kid Part 2 callbacks always kind of in that initial DNA?
Well, I think it was always in the initial DNA. They heard it from me from probably the first or second day we ever spoke. I always felt that I wanted to go back. I wanted to explore what happened with Daniel and Kumiko. Because I always felt if I ever went back to this this is like, for years, decades on end, it's a story that was just kind of dropped, and then Karate Kid 3 was something else. So it never made sense completely to me why Miyagi wouldn't have gone back to Yukie and why Daniel and Kumiko might not have had. So you had these 30 years. I said, let's fill in those blanks. Now it has to fit in the format of what the Cobra Kai series is. And I think what's nice about what happens in season 3 with both Chosen and Kumiko is that there's always room to see more of them in some way. And we'll see how the fans react. I think, it'll be dictated by that as well.